using an aerial ladder were called to a chemical incident processing site in Essex today. The alarm was raised at Synthoma in Harlow when a tank of vinyl acetate started heating up by itself, causing it to expand. The building was evacuated, affecting around 50 members of staff, and a 200-metre hazard zone was set up. It took 2 hours before the site was then declared safe and the chemical was deluged with water.
A jury at Luton Crown Court has retired to consider its verdict in the trial of footballer Callum Davenport. The former West Ham and Norwich City defender is accused of attacking his sister Cara in Bedford in August last year. The court heard how a row had erupted between them about financial support for a child she was 7 weeks pregnant with. The prosecution said he then repeatedly headbutted his sister and bit her on the cheek. He denies the charges.
Next, a new mum was left in a severely soiled state for 2 hours after giving birth to a brain-damaged child at Milton Keynes Hospital. An inquest is heard today. Matthew Broughton told the inquest that his partner Lorna Howell was left in a horrible state at the hospital last December. Their son Alex died at another hospital in Oxford a day later. Yesterday, a senior nurse apologised after the hospital sent the couple a letter of congratulations on the day that Alex died.
A woman escaped jail today despite admitting driving the wrong way along the M11 in Essex while 3.5 times over the legal alcohol limit.
Viola Borowska's journey was only brought to an end thanks to the bravery of a former police officer, as Tom Barton now reports.
Leaving court after admitting a stupid and potentially deadly mistake, Viola Borowska hid her face from our camera today. Last week, the Polish supermarket worker was driving to Stansted Airport to collect her cousin. The 42-year-old was 3.5 times over the drink-drive limit and took the wrong exit from the Birchanger Green roundabout. It was 7:30 in the evening and the M11 was busy. Police were flooded with calls from drivers saying that there was a black Peugeot 307 driving in the wrong direction, northbound on this southbound carriageway. Borowska travelled for around 3 miles in the wrong direction, north of Junction 8 on the M11, before being brought to a halt by the brave actions of a former police officer.
I just moved my little red car here to block her path and put my lights on full beam and jumped out. So she was presented with a large person standing in front of her, and I thought, well, sure, hopefully you won't drive over me. And she stopped. I think, again, she was confused or whatever, so I then managed to sort of prevent her going north and got her by persuading her really just to turn around, and then obviously to try and stop her driving off.
Viola Borowska could have faced a prison sentence, but because she pleaded guilty and admitted to battling a drinking problem, that was reduced to 12 months on probation, 200 hours of community service, and she won't be allowed to drive again for 3 years. Tom Barton, Anglia News, Harlow.
It's 11 minutes past 6. Do stay with us. More of the region's news on the way.
We're at the Royal Norfolk Show, plus an amazing...
Some more news now, and protesters from our region have been taking part in a demonstration by victims who received contaminated blood from transfusions in the 1980s. They now want the government to look again at providing compensation for people who contracted conditions such as HIV and hepatitis, and for the relatives of those who died. Owen Saville from Newmarket has lived with hepatitis C for nearly 30 years.
I'm looking for some kind of support package from the government to help us with this. It's been called a compensation package, but it's very difficult to compensate for people's lives and people's health. I prefer to think of it as a support to help those people.
Nearly 300 people have lost their jobs after an art publishing business based in Northampton went into administration. The art group, which designs and sells greetings cards and prints, has been based on the Brackmills estate for 20 years. A skeleton staff will remain to help the administrators KPMG to find a buyer for the business.
Some new figures show that attacks on police officers in Cambridgeshire almost every day. In the year ending in March, 314 police officers were attacked, as well as 13 community support officers and special constables. They've been spat on, punched and kicked, and one was even dragged through Cambridge city centre by a taxi.
A new survey suggests 1 in 10 of all our churches and other places of worship is in desperate need of repair.
But now English Heritage is calling on congregations across our region to work with them to save their buildings for the sake of history and also the future. Jim Rice has this report.
A familiar mark on the flat fen landscape, maybe even a part of the landscape itself. St Mark's Church at 10 Mile Bank in West Norfolk has been a part of village life for 150 years. And in all that time, it's probably never looked better. St Mark's was crumbling away until English Heritage and local churchgoers brought it back, sharing the costs and the work to give the community more than just a place of worship.
With advice from Norfolk Churches Trust, the diocese, ourselves at English Heritage, and critically finding people in the village who really wanted to push this project forward. They're in the state that they are now, a transformed, repaired and beautified church once again back in use.
St Mark's isn't alone. This is St Vincent's Church in Newham in Hertfordshire. Dating back to around the 12th century, it was slowly decaying, but new funding means repairs are underway. Now English Heritage has contacted every church, chapel, synagogue, temple and mosque in the region which it thinks is under threat, asking congregations to consider working in partnership to restore their buildings.
Whilst the money is important, what is of fundamental importance is finding the right people in the community who can grip the problem and find solutions and implement them. And that's what you've got here. If you haven't got the right people, then it's very difficult to make it happen.
It's DIY on a grand scale, but as St Mark's shows, it can be worth it in the end. Jim Rice, Anglia News, 10 Mile Bank in Norfolk.
And if you think your church or place of worship is in need of repair, you can contact English Heritage via their website. There's the address. It's english-heritage.org.uk.
Next tonight, a couple from Cambridgeshire were amazed to see a mother seal and her pup while out walking by the River Great Ouse near their home.
Susanna Connell was strolling by the river near Bluntisham with her husband when they spotted the pair in the water around 100 miles from the sea. Stuart Leeds has this report.
When Susanna Connell was out walking with her husband by the River Great Ouse near their home in Bluntisham, they expected to see wildlife like the odd swan. But not this mother seal and her tiny pup, lying in shallow water near the riverbank.
Never seen a seal in the river before. I've never seen a seal pup in the UK river. It was just a wonderful experience. I never thought it would come so close as well. I thought it would just see a human and then dive down and just swim off and go far away, but it didn't. It came right up, very, very close to us.
Susanna's husband John shot this footage of the seals on his mobile phone. They're at least 100 miles from the sea, which is their natural habitat. But they appear to be perfectly at home so far inland.
It's obviously swam up a load of locks, because to get here you've got to get through some locks. So I would imagine the mum swam up and then she must have had the pup around here, because I wouldn't like to push up a seal pup all the way through locks and things. But dragonflies, swans, with a few herons, maybe an otter, but seals, never thought I'd see a seal.
Mum and pup eventually decided to swim away, but Susanna at least has the video to remind her of a chance encounter that's unlikely to be repeated. Stuart Leiths, Anglia News, Bluntisham near Huntingdon.
What an amazing sight.
Absolutely. I wish I could see one.
Oh, now it's